Hi guys, Jim's here from the Who Addicts. Yeah, so I'm here today to review the latest Doctor Who episode, Smile, which was a absolutely rip-roaring episode. It was so fantastic and great. Help. This channel's been taken over by the BBC. We've got to be relentlessly positive and smile all the time, and we're not allowed to be negative about any Doctor Who episode whatsoever. Please, send help. So, today, unfortunately, I will not be joined by Matthew or Liv to review the episode Smile. I will be joined by Jacob Martin. This is a rarity, ladies and gentlemen, that I will be joined by Jacob Martin. Chances are it's once in a blue moon opportunity, and it probably won't come around again very soon, unless Matthew and Liv take longer off the channel, then in which case Jacob will probably be doing reviews with me quite often. But here we are. Here is our review of Smile. Help me! Hey there guys, James here, and I'm joined, this is a rarity, ladies and gentlemen, by our tech guy, Jacob Martin. How are you today, Jacob?
Hello. I'm very good. I'm a very happy, smiley emoji, I'll have you know.
Good. That was a great reference towards this episode. That was actually very good.
Thank you.
Are you sure you haven't done reviews with us before? Because, you know, that was actually quite a good reference.
No, I'm a newcomer to all this.
But for those of you who don't know, Matthew has had to take time off of the channel due to a family loss, and so he's got to take as much time as he possibly can away from the channel to mourn. And naturally, with Liv being his girlfriend, she is there to support Matthew through this horrible time, for emotional support. So she will also be away from the channel with Matthew as well. So if any of you are on our social media and are aware of, you know, that statement that that Jacob put up about that, you guys will already be aware. But yes, we send all our love to Matthew and to Liv, and hopefully they'll be back on the channel very, very soon. And for those of you who don't know Jacob either, any of you who might be newcomers, Jacob is not a newcomer to this channel per se. He is the one that is responsible for all of our thumbnails, all of our profile pictures, cover art, and all of our basically everything. He keeps the channel ticking, I think. So yeah, this is quite a rarity because Jacob doesn't really appear on the channel himself very much, but it's good to have you to review Smile.
Well, it's nice to be here. It'll make a change from being behind the camera to being on an actual video, but yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, definitely. And so let's kick off the review of Smile. Now, we opened this episode with quite a lovely scene. We're assuming that it starts right where the pilot left off, where Bill just goes running into the TARDIS at the end of the pilot, and then we start Smile with the Doctor just sort of going, so now what, you know, and stuff like that, and it's like the Doctor is trying to actually impress Bill. Which I think is actually quite funny. Like, he's just showing off to her his cool car in a way.
Yeah, he does seem quite smug about the fact that he has his TARDIS, and he kind of seems a bit egotistical, but not in a mean way. He seems quite happy to be able to show Bill as a new companion how the TARDIS works and going into the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's also great because not only is he trying to impress Bill, but it's like he's actually excited. You know, clearly it's probably been a while since he departed from Clara, and probably a longer still since, you know, the whole thing with River Song and the husbands of River Song. And so it's been clear that he has been working at the university for, Bill said in the last episode, 50 years or so. So he has been looking after that vault for quite a long time. So it's safe to say that this vault is our story arc for Series 10. and so yeah, he seems like he's kind of gagging for an adventure. He's not travelled in a while, so he's desperately wanting to go and do some adventuring in a way.
Yeah, and what better person to do it with than Bill? And I think this episode, well, we'll get into it later about the actual story and the plot itself, but I think this episode is really good in displaying their relationship and how it's starting to develop, especially with the elements of trust and safety between them.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely having that kind of tutor and student relationship, which I think is rather good. You know, we have this bubbly and energetic Bill and the sort of stern and rather cautious Doctor, which I think is a really, really good contrast. And the fact that we, as me, Matthew, and Liv said in our review last week, you know, where the Doctor and Clara were kind of equals in a way, you know, this is actually a contrast, like they're different people, and so that makes for a great on-screen chemistry. And going into the second week of this season, it really does look still good. The Doctor, despite this episode's shortcomings, which we'll get to, the Doctor and Bill are definitely the once again the saving grace of this episode.
Yeah, definitely, I totally agree there. And it's quite nice to see how the Doctor kind of has a sense of responsibility over Bill, and he'll actually try and keep her in the TARDIS or by that map in the later parts of the episode, but Bill obviously rebels against him and ends up joining him anyway.
Yeah, definitely. That is something that I definitely look forward to. Now, onto the Vardy, the robots that we see, or the emoji bots that was dubbed previously before this episode. And it's funny now that we think about it, because they are never ever referred to in this episode as emoji bots. That was a name that we made up.
That's very true.
You know, not even fans came up with that. Not even Bill came up with that, like we assumed. You know, we suddenly came to the assumption that they were called emoji bots.
Yeah, no, I think the BBC did refer to them as emoji bots in a press release, but apart from that, the name emoji bots has been kind of plucked out of nowhere, it seems.
Yeah. I think it's just because emoji bots kind of just had a good ring to it. But I do love how, you know, like I loved that line when the Doctor and Bill have not long since arrived on the planet, and the Doctor just goes, "Well, it depends what language has survived on your race for thousands of years," and then it's an emoji. So it seems, and the Doctor seems slightly disappointed by that emojis are the language of the human race that survives. That's quite funny, I think.
I think before we go on to Vardy's a bit more, I would just like to point out the fact, the lack of Nardole in this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Would you like to elaborate further on the lack of Nardole?
Well, I thought, like we spoke before we started recording this, Nardole is more likeable in this episode compared to the pilot, but we don't know if that's just down to the fact that he literally was only in it for the first 5 minutes of the episode. But the fact that the Doctor called him Mum, it's starting to give a bit of a better dynamic between them, that Nardole kind of has that pressure of keeping him on Earth because he's made this promise or whatever. He's starting to become a little bit more likeable. I don't know how you feel about him, but I'm starting to like him a bit more.
Yeah, I really can't tell at this point what with him being annoying and pretty much pointless and irritating in the pilot, and I can only really assume that it's simply down to the fact that he isn't in the episode all that much and is only in one scene. In fact, he's only in it for like about just like a few lines of dialogue. And so yeah, I'm scared though that if he had been in the scene any longer, it would have gotten annoying. And he would have said something stupid, or you know, something like that, or even worse, if he'd went with them to this the Zarbi planet. I do think that would be, you know, just, I think he would have really gotten under all our skins again. But as it stands,
yeah, it would have been too much.
Yeah. As it stands in this episode now, where Nardole was, that is a much better dynamic that I think you're right about, that, you know, that Nardole is trying to keep the Doctor on planet, and he's trying to make the Doctor keep this mysterious promise that he's made to someone, and so I'm really I liked that little hint towards. I hope that is the step in the right direction for Nardole. I did think that the pacing in this episode was a little bit clunky. Like, it seemed slow in parts and then fast in others, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with you there, yeah.
Yeah.
It did seem to start off quite slow, and it didn't really develop much, and then I felt, especially towards the end, when they got into that spaceship in the middle of the city, I felt that seemed to be suddenly really rushed, and especially with the supporting cast of Ralph Little, it was kind of made a big deal when there was a YouTube video of him making a joke that he wasn't in Doctor Who when he was on the set, but he was so underused, as were the other supporting actors, I thought.
Yeah, they pretty much had no reason or purpose, really, other than to just kind of like wake up and kind of like threaten the Vardy, because the Doctor suddenly kind of sympathised with the Vardy and just kind of, kind of went on their side, kind of thing, and just kind of thought that the humans were the ones that were the threat, and so I did kind of love the twist, though, that the Doctor got it a bit wrong. And
that's what I was going to comment on, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I really actually enjoyed that the Vardy, they kind of developed their own kind of thinking process, and they kind of, and how they deal with grief. And I did think that was actually really, really good. I thought that was actually good.
Yeah, it makes for a bit of a change that the Doctor was actually wrong, and he assumed that the robots were sent before the colonists arrived, when they were actually there. But it's clear. It's quite interesting how he asked Bill if she thought that he had convinced himself enough, and she looked at the emoji on the back of his face, and it was still a confused one.
Yeah. I thought that I really enjoyed that too. The badges on the back. I really actually enjoyed those ones as well.
Yeah, I thought they'd be something of nothing and a bit forced, but they actually were used fairly well.
They were. And this is actually. What with how technology is going now, with emojis, and that is kind of how we express our feelings online a little bit, and to sort of bring emojis into society and sort of make them actually a justifiable part of how we live our lives, that actually seems like a legitimate way of how the future may actually turn out someday,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed that. I also liked how it made sense that you can't see your own mood because it would affect your own mood. So that's kind of like a feedback loop, and I really liked that. I thought that made a lot of sense, and also the fact that it was kind of like when Bill said, "Oh, what if you fancy someone?" And then the Doctor goes, "Well, you'll just have to keep making eye contact with them." People think that emojis and the internet is kind of stopping us from expressing ourselves. A lot of people think that in society today, but the fact that in this future the emojis are actually used to kind of help us kind of make day-to-day contact in person, I thought that was actually a really good statement.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And in that respect, I think the emoji bots were quite a clever idea, and they were executed fairly well. But in other areas, especially towards the end, the emoji bots or the Vardis just seemed to...
Oh, definitely.
I couldn't be serious with them. The fact that they could just be reset, it just seemed a bit of a odd ending.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll get on to the ending, definitely, but I mean, it was the fact that, I mean, the that kind of like the humans waking up. It felt like the episode all of a sudden just kind of, I don't know, that was just a part that I was kind of just like, okay, now you've lost me, that kind of thing. I started to actually just like look at my phone and go, right, okay, you've actually lost me a bit here.
Yeah.
When the story took that turn, it was kind of like, I don't know, it kind of lost me a bit there.
Yeah, it did seem a bit strange, especially when they were all waking up like slowly. So you had that one child who came out of nowhere, and then you had the other guy played by Ralph Little, and then a couple of other people. It seemed quite a weird sequence almost, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely kind of seemed that way without a doubt, and so yeah, going on to that ending, switching the Vardy off and on again.
God.
The very British way of how we in Britain deal with everything. Oh, have you switched it off and on again? It seems like Moss from the IT crowd might actually be a little bit proud of this episode.
Yeah.
Because this ending was actually really, really cop out.
It was so
pretty
cop-out.
much. Yeah, so cop out. Like, I'd say more cop out than the Power of Three ending.
Yeah.
And that was really freaking cop out. That episode, that ending just seemed really rushed. The solution didn't seem like it was justified at all. I mean, just the fact that they actually come right out and say it. Oh yeah, we switched it off and on again.
Yeah,
It
it doesn't really sit very well with me, especially since when you think about it, because the Doctor didn't do anything with them, he claims to just have reset them. Surely they have the ability to go back into the same loop of where the one kid is still suffering from grief from his mother's death, and then they go through the whole cycle again of them thinking, oh, he's suffering, so we'll kill him, and then just the cycle just starts again.
Yeah, it's just, and I mean, I did think that the episode was nice and positive. I think it was a really good and optimistic episode, and, it kind of showed a future that, yeah, I know that there were these emoji bots that were turning humans into skeletons and turning them into fertilizer, but in a weird way, I found this episode to be kind of positive and nice and upbeat, which I think was a good change of pace.
I'm not sure if I agree with you there. I mean, especially what really got me was when Bill opened that book, which had by that dead woman who had that book of all the history of what happened on Earth, and that was an interesting thing to see Bill again suffering from a bit of a more emotional tone rather than the happy Bill that we're used to seeing so far. But in some ways, like especially with that scene, it was quite sad.
Yeah. So I mean that. I do understand where you're coming from. That was a very cop-out ending, but at the same time, I found positivity in it. I don't know, but ultimately, I think it might have actually been the fact that my expectations of this episode were so low that I actually enjoyed it, despite how clearly like cop-out the ending was.
Yeah, I think considering the last episode we've had written by Frank Cottrell-Boyce was In the Forest of the Night, I think this episode was much more enjoyable and well written on his part than what we've seen him write before for Doctor Who. So I was pleasantly surprised to see what he'd written.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is definitely better than In the Forest of the Night. Let's have that as a big massive positive. This is definitely better and a lot more enjoyable at that. But it wasn't. It still wasn't. It was just a big bit of okay. It wasn't anything special. It was your bog standard episode 2.
Yeah.
Really. Because episode 2s in series they haven't been the best. So this is just your bog standard episode 2, what you'd expect, really.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but likewise, it wasn't exactly great. It's going to be an episode that I don't think I'm going to necessarily remember very well, but it's not one that I'm going to remember to put in my bad books of me hating it.
Yeah, it's not going to be an episode that in years to come we go on and on about how much we hate it. But it's not an episode that we're necessarily going to go back and re-watch. But it's definitely an okay episode. I I wouldn't necessarily skip it in a marathon. I'd sit down
No.
and I'd watch it, but I wouldn't, think much of it.
Yeah, I think we need to comment on the direction of the episode, actually.
Yeah.
Because although the story was lacking a bit, I thought that the direction from Lawrence Goffigan was, amazing.
Yeah,
Really.
I thought that was really good. I loved the very clean, pristine kind of direction of it. That, kind of like the colour palette of it was really good. That it was all bright and lovely colours and everything. And how Bill's costume, how Bill's wardrobe was kind of incorporated into that. How bright and colourful she was in personality and in dress up and in her surroundings as well. That, it was all just very positive and it was all just, but it looked kind of off. It kind of looked synthetic, like it was synthetic positivity, if that makes any sense at all. Like it was made to look happy.
Yeah.
It wasn't like people actually were happy.
Yeah, I think they did that really well.
Yeah. That definitely looked,
with their choice of location in Spain.
Yeah, definitely. That looked really, really good, I think. So, I mean, but before, is there anything else you'd like to say before we go on to conclusions?
I'm not sure, really. I think, just to sum up my thoughts on the emoji bots, really, I just didn't really see the point in them. Because, obviously, I'm assuming they were created by the humans to make the world. But I don't understand why they'd have the program in them to kill. Because I know they explained that they had become basically sentient and kind of they thought for themselves, but it was just a bit confusing to me what their purpose was and why they were killing people.
Yeah, I think, I can see why it would be confusing, and I've got to admit, it did take my second watch to kind of wrap my head around that and to sort of like go, alright, okay, I get that. So it did kind of take a bit of understanding, I think, and and so, yeah, I mean, I'd also like to go on to a little bit about Bill in this episode. I absolutely adored, I have to address this, how she pretty much worked out why the Doctor loves the TARDIS being a police box. He loves the idea that, he's the one that goes out and helps people, and, that's the police box. And using the little sign that's on the door of the TARDIS, that is actually a really good, sort of reference towards the Doctor and everything that he does. The Doctor's whole, life, in fact, can be basically summed up on that door, and I love that Bill pretty much worked him out in this episode and worked out what he was about, and so I really enjoyed that she seems like a really intuitive character.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you with that. I really like Bill in this episode, and again, brilliant acting from Pearl, and also Peter as well. They just both worked really well, and for me, that's what kind of made the episode quite enjoyable, is to see the relationship develop between them two.
Yeah, definitely. And on to Peter as well. I know this might sound a bit weird because, like, in every episode he's the Doctor, so how does this sentence make sense? But in this episode, he is just so Doctor.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? I think it might be the surroundings, the futuristic city, the fact that he's with a new companion, or it might just be, the fact that he's like the kind of companion he's with, the fact that this is a companion that doesn't know everything, and Bill doesn't even pretend to know everything. She knows what she knows, and she uses what she knows. She doesn't try and pretend like she knows anything more than that.
Yeah.
And so the Doctor is Peter just stood there, and I don't know, him mixed with Bill's character and that mixed with the futuristic world, he just felt so Doctor, with the clothes and the dialogue and everything, and how, sort of puzzled and how curious he was around this whole city. It was pretty much really, really, he was just so Doctor,
And I do just like how Bill is a companion. She's not like Clara and the impossible girl or anything like that. She's just a normal human being a companion of the Doctor. I really like the line when she was like, "Oh, thanks for bringing me. This is a really great day out." it just made you realise that she is just a normal person like me or you, and she's just reacts really well to the Doctor and his life as probably we would.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I love how kind of like in sync she is. Kind of like, I mean, a lot of people I can imagine would be annoyed by Bill in the aspect that, you know, she's taking selfies, and, you know, and people might think, oh God.
But who wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that's the thing. That's probably how the Doctor's reacting. Just like, why are you stood there taking selfies? Oh God, you know. So that to me seems like that's basically how human beings are today. That is how today's generations are. They take selfies. They, you know, they kind of, you know, if they see a spaceship right in front of them, they're going to be excited about it. That's what I love. They're going back to the basics with the companion. That they ask questions, and the Bill is asking questions that the Doctor doesn't even know how to answer, you know, and I really like that, and I really just enjoy Bill's character. She seems very warm and very, you know, sort of a welcoming presence in Doctor Who, and that has continued into Smile. So, shall we conclude with conclusions and scoring?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep, cool. You may go first. You are practically the guest for this episode on the channel, so please go first.
Okay, so like I said before, the Doctor's and Bill's relationship really kind of stood out for me in this episode and made me enjoy the episode much more, really. I think the dynamic between them was perfectly written by Frank, and the lack of Nardole in this episode was definitely a positive. I thought the Vault story arc was subtly placed in, which I liked, and it makes me interested to see how that will develop as we go through the series. I really like the aspect that the Doctor was kind of wrong, and he didn't quite know what was happening, which was a bit of a change for the Doctor. The Vardy, unfortunately, I didn't quite latch onto them as well as I'd like to. They're a bit confusing as to what their motives are and who they're created by, and, you know, kind of why were they doing what they were doing. So even though it was kind of resolved, it still left me asking some questions. The direction was brilliant, just like in the pilot, and the acting from both Peter and Pearl was also on point. Ralph Little and the supporting cast were also kind of let down, as well. Ralph Little was only introduced about half an hour into the episode, but all in all, I think I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
That seems like a very good score, actually. That seems like a pretty good score indeed. Pretty fair one, I think.
Because I did enjoy the episode, but it just, I don't know. Yeah. I'm quite on edge about it.
Yeah, you enjoyed the episode, but it wasn't all that great either. You know,
no.
I think that is fair to admit. But with me, the Doctor and Bill, as you said, had a absolutely fantastic chemistry that carried on from what I loved about the pilot. This was definitely the saving grace of this episode, that these characters have got such great chemistry and such lovely personalities together, and they sort of clash, but they also complement each other nicely, which is a good contradiction, I think. As the plot of the episode goes, it was very stop and start like. It was the pacing was very slow. It felt like it didn't have much of a payoff, but I did enjoy the twist that the Doctor was wrong, as you said, and switching the Vardy off and on again. That was complete and total cop out, and like Frank didn't know how he wanted to end the episode, so he just decided to take a big massive shortcut, and the supporting cast were left to be desired as well. So basically, the only thing to take from this episode is that it looks good, like it looks okay, and it looks really enjoyable to watch, but basically the only thing to take from this episode is the Doctor and Bill. They are an incredible presence on screen, and that's all I can really take from it. A 4 out of 10.
Oh, you went lower than me. I thought I was being pessimistic, but...
Yeah, it's just I think the Doctor and Bill were great in this episode. They were absolutely brilliant. but I don't think that was enough to give it a 5. Just didn't, that felt too generous to me.
Fair enough.
That felt like I was kind of, the episode still very much felt like a very weak episode, because, in Doctor Who, we live in an age where people are going to watch an episode over and over and over again. They're going to buy it on DVD, they're going to watch it on iPlayer, and inevitably they're going to watch it on Netflix. So these are episodes that you can't get away with only wanting to watch it once. If it lets you down after the second watch, the episode's pretty much done for. I think that is the way I'm thinking with Doctor Who lately. With the classic era, it was different, because those episodes were made to only be watched once. They weren't really made to be rewatched. But with modern Who, you've kind of got to make it at least good enough to watch a large number of times.
Yeah.
So, I think that's all we've got to say on the episode. Isn't that right, Jacob?
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
I think so.
Yep, definitely. So, Jacob, can I just say to all of our subscribers, Jacob, thank you very, very much. You've stepped up brilliantly, while Matthew and Liv have taken this time to out of the channel for personal reasons, and Jacob has brilliantly stepped up on this channel for us, and hopefully, as. When and if Matthew, and if they decide not to stay out of the channel for a bit longer, hopefully Jacob will be joining me for previews and reviews in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
But Jacob, as it stands right now, thank you so much for stepping up for us, and
It's my pleasure.
he's even going to be editing the review, which is just absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Jacob.
It's no
really
problem.
do appreciate it. So, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. God, my jaw is really starting to hurt after all that smiling. Oh, it was funny that. All I had to do was switch the BBC off and on again. Anyway, so, I hope you enjoyed our review of Smile. Please like this video, subscribe to the Who Addicts to keep up to date with our reviews and previews of all of the episodes in Doctor Who Series 10. And also comment in the section below what your thoughts were on Smile, if it made you smile, or if it just made you scowl incredibly. So, I will see you guys in our preview for the next episode, Thin Ice. See you guys then.